I think a lot of the listeners that listen to this will probably be in the same boat. It's that imposter syndrome. And I still get it even today. What happened next to is probably what has shaped my entire life. So at 9 years old, my mum got taken to prison. Like, salary conversation is I see it every day. The fear in people when that comes around, networking is probably the one thing I try to do the most out of everything in my entire career. Best advice I ever had was to be myself and be unapologetic with it. Like, I'm here for a reason. Own it.
Hi, everyone. It's Isa from the Black Network. We promised you some really interesting conversations about careers and about progressing within your career. I am so pleased and excited to be joined today by Marcell Edwards. He is a career strategy coach and consultant and does loads of amazing work. I've known Marcell for a while and he's an absolutely fantastic guy. Loads of incredible advice that he shares with people that really helps them in their careers. So I'm really pleased to be with him. Marcell, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Yes, so my name is Marcell Edwards. I do a lot of careers advice, careers coaching, guidance, job seeker support, mentoring. I think the biggest thing that I probably have as a sort of feather to my cap is trying to balance too many plates or spin too many plates while supporting everybody by myself, which is a detriment sometimes. But I think for everybody or every interaction I meet, I always try to add some form of value. And I think that's probably testament as to why we're having a conversation today, right?
100%. I personally never come away from a conversation with you without having some value added. And I'm a professional in the field. So I think that says a lot. So today we're going to be covering a whole host of themes that Marcell can offer some really good insights into. We're going to look at resilience, which is really key in the current environment. We'll look at success through authenticity, and that's a really key theme for us in the Black Network, how to thrive being your authentic self. And we'll also look at career progression, which is really the way forward for so many people to kind of unlock their best lives, if you like. But also let's look at job searching in the current market, because I know a lot of people are really struggling. So hopefully we'll get some really good insights. Stay with us throughout this conversation. You will really enjoy this. So Marcell, diving straight into the conversation, I wanted to start, I guess, from the beginning, because you and I have known each other for a while, and I know that you have had an incredible journey to where you are today as a really powerful brand and a powerful consultant in the career sector. Tell us a little bit about the journey that you've had to get you here today.
You know, it's always a funny one, right? When I hear my name being, I guess, lit up in lights, giving flowers back to it, so it's really interesting to hear that because I've always, and anybody that follows me, I always tell them the same, I'm just me, So when people tell me that I'm this sort of expert in the field and this sort of human that knows all this guidance and it still blows my mind that I can be that person, right? And I think a lot of the listeners that listen to this will probably be in the same boat. It's that imposter syndrome, and I still get it even today. But if I tell you my story, hopefully some of you will resonate, but also it might actually reinforce to myself that, I should be unapologetic in where I'm at right now and not be grateful for where I'm at. It's taken a lot of hard work. So I guess let's go back to the beginning. So I grew up in Newport, single parent family, but that's not uncommon. Mum's white, dad's black. Never met my dad, never got to meet him. And fast forward, when I was an adult, I found out that he passed away. So never ever got to meet him, never got to know who he was or anything like that. So that's never really been a loss of mine because I've never had it. So growing up with just my mum, it was all about community. It's all about, what she's really good at, although she was not the same ethnicity as me. She's really good about, showing me my culture. So where we live was really diverse, with multicultural environment, lots of different people, lots of different ethnicities, religions, etc. So I never felt like I was black or non-white. It was just everybody was just everybody. There was none of these kind of racial stereotypes, nothing at all. And yeah, life was good. Mum always focused on the education element. Make sure you get an education. She was very much get a trade. You always have money, get a trade. So school, regardless of anything going on, whether I faked illness or whatever, I was in school, buttoned up, bright as a spark. Even when my mum couldn't take me out in a taxi, there was no getting out, going to school, nothing you could do. So life for me was relatively normal growing up with all. That's how it seemed for me, because that was my reality. What happened next is probably what has shaped my entire life. So at 9 years old, my mum got taken to prison. So she went to prison. Complete shock to me, complete shock to everybody around us. We didn't have a family unit around us. So when she went to prison, I was taken away. But the reason why she went to prison was because she's a drug dealer, right? So she's a drug dealer. So she went to prison because she's a drug dealer. Because I had no family unit around me, I went shipped away and went to live with a completely different family, an all-white family in an all-white area with no diversity at all. And that was the first pivotal moment in my life where I sort of felt adversity to some degree. And bear in mind, I grew up in a world where you see drugs, you see knives, you see guns, you see violence all the time, and your house gets knocked down through police coming through the door every 2 minutes, raiding the gaff and that. But for me, that was normal. That was just regular. My mum was always my safety blanket at that community. Whereas moving to this family, it was completely abnormal. Food was different, hairstyles were different, clothes were different. The people in the community didn't like me. They'd call me names. They'd call me derogatory Asian names. I was really confused. I was like, I'm not what you're calling me. Then the N word came. I didn't even know what that word was, right? So I was just like, yeah, cool. And then when the fist came with it, I knew that then it was a bad word. And then when I repeated the word, and then it got repeated more and more and more, and then you understand to like learning education. So growing up in that world was really, really tough. I'm not going to lie, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't easy. There will see as you grow up from 9 years old to whenever there's some positives in there. You make the positives out there and you kind of assimilate to some degree. But one thing I really found when I grew up in that world was you dilute your blackness to fit in, and you talk about code switching. There's code switching in professional environments. We all do it. We have to do it, right, to survive. In this world, it's more than code switches, identity switching, behavior switching, in order to literally survive and to not get picked on or beaten up or bullied or whatever. So anyway, I spread
incredible story already, but I'm really interested to understand when you learned how to code switch your identity and if you became that identity as well.
I think it was, I don't necessarily understand when it came. It was more of pretending to be white in order to fit in because I knew I was different. So it probably started with the haircuts. I wanted the same hair as the lads there because they all had the same haircut, which meant that they were all mates trying to get their same haircut. And obviously you can't do that with my hair. I remember distinctly Brill cream, that cream that is for like really straight hair. I remember getting some of that and trying to put that in my hair, and that just looked stupid, just turn my hair white, it just looked dumb. Hairspray as well, turn my hair white. Trying to have like different cuts that would be deemed as normal. And then using language, I think language was beating into me more than me changing it. The way I speak and the way I'm conversing to you now is definitely a product of that because, the way I conversed back then probably had a little bit more slang, a little bit more
twang.
I had to change the articulation. I had to change the way I spoke to fit in. So I kind of naturally came because of my environment, I would say. And although, yes, in professional world, we do code switch, what I found later on in life, which when we go through the rest of my journey, is that change hindered me in adulthood. It did, although it worked for me then, it altered me. It affected me during kind of secondary school and then massively affected me in adulthood, which is still something that I'm working through even today. So it's very, very, very tough learning curve, let's say. But it wasn't all doom and gloom. My mum did come out of prison when I was like, I think it was going through end of year 7, year 8, I think it was year 8. And we lived in a place in Yorkshire. So bear in mind, Newport was where it was, South Wales. Yorkshire is a completely different country. It's completely end of the country. And again, when my mum came out, the town where we lived was all white. Again, we moved to a hostel at the time, so again, people in the community, they knew that people in those sort of situations were either like on drugs, fresh out of prison or whatever. My mum had a local job there because she was in an open prison towards the end of her sentence. So people knew her already. They already knew her story. So when I came, I was kind of already at a detriment because not only was I black in a white town, but also now my mum was in prison, or ex-jailbird or convict, whatever. So when I went to this new school, secondary school, 1,500 kids, there was maybe, I couldn't name another person of color in that school. In the town, definitely not. Zero. There wasn't any diversification in that town, not so. So that not only did I then have the race challenges, and also trying to use my code switching, if you like, with this new audience didn't work because they didn't understand it. They're like, "You're black, why are you talking like this? You're not one of us. What are you on about? Why are you not being black?" And then when my mum came out, she couldn't really understand why I was being white. So she would dress me in the clothes I used to dress in. So then I was kind of going to school. I remember those naff jackets and that, walking to school with that, with decent trim and stuff. But then communicating in a very white way, which then confused a lot of people. So that took a lot of adjustments and stuff. But the education system then was a real struggle because I did rebel a little bit. I wasn't the greatest child in the world. I was facing adversity every day going to school in terms of kids mocking me, bullying me, or whatever. I had to fight quite a lot through school. Teachers telling me that I'll just end up like my mum. Teachers telling me I wouldn't get any education just because I wouldn't be attentive in class, or I would argue back over fighting.
Yeah.
But yeah, going through school, if I skipped through quite quickly, I fought against the teachers, if you like, and got GCSEs, which then led me to go sixth form. Again, stayed there just because I fancied a career as a fireman. That's what I wanted to do. So I needed to waste 2 years essentially to get to AT. So I chose A-level PE, business studies and systems and controls. And funny enough, with my results, my weakest results was business studies, which is down crazy. So I ended up getting some A-levels. And I remember some teachers that doubted me. I remember doing something very stupid, very immature, but it was kind of that frustration coming out and just put my 2 fingers up and shouting, "F you, I've got what I needed. See ya." It was particularly aimed at this one PE teacher. Well, I'm not going to say her name, but I'm going to call her out. But after all that, there was one teacher in particular, Miss Wood, changed my life forever. She said, "Go to university. Go to university." I was like, "No, I'm going to be a fireman. What is university? It's for Hogwarts kids. Like, I'm not going there. I want to go on to be a fireman." I was playing football on the town at the time. I was like, "I'm a baller. I'm doing this. I'm going to be a fireman. My life's good. Mom's dead proud, because I've got GCSEs. I think I got £5 or £10 for every GCSE to see it above as well." So I was like,
Yeah, you're minted.
But, I explored it. And because I'd never heard of it, I never knew UCAS or one of these things, I had to defer the year. I actually picked a course that I didn't even understand. Ironically, criminology. Just one of my friends did it, but the destination was Manchester. So fast forward the year of working to get towards like the financial level. I came to Manchester, and that's again where that kind of code switching messed me up completely. Like I share the story, getting off that train and landing in Manchester, going to Piccadilly Gardens, for example, and seeing black people, white people, Asian people.
Back in that diverse environment
It was
again.
insane. Like, it was something that wasn't real to me, right? So walking inside the grounds, I was like, whoa. And then when I got into my halls, we had some Asian folks and white folks and some black folks on the corridor. And I instantly found I couldn't connect with either of them. I tried to connect, that's what I was used to. They were kind of, they had their little, what it's like, black guys had theirs and they were speaking different. I couldn't understand patois, for example, some things there. I could recognize some from old, but it's a bit odd. And the Asian guys, they had their ways, right? It was the Asian guys that took me in first. So then I started building bonds with the Asian guys, and then kind of momentum built and
expanded your groups as well.
Yeah, but I had to live, and that was another life lesson for me. Is because I didn't have much financial backing with my own situation. I had to get a job to provide for university. So I had to actually work. I'd start 20 hours a week in a retail store, and then up that throughout uni. But that was what helped me converse and helped me break down sort of barriers, and through sports as well, because I was a footballer. I started building networks of people, started getting a bit of a reputation.
Started networking really early, basically. I have a quick question on that, because it is, your story is just incredible, and that's why I really wanted you to kind of share that today. But all of those situations that were just shocking and really unacceptable for a child to have to go through, they clearly shaped you in some way. But I was quite interested to find out, when you say how hard it was for you to have to kind of code switch and find your tribe and everything, did that in some way help you? Because immediately after you said that, you then said that you had to then start to network and work your way through. So were there any positives from that, or was it literally just set you back a few years until you found your own way?
Wow, great question. And it's one I've thought about before, but never really answered. So this is probably an exclusive. But I don't think anybody's asked me that question before. So if I really deep it, let's say my mum didn't go to prison, right? And I stayed in the environment I was at. Would I have been a tradesman? Probably not. Would I have been a drug dealer? Yes, probably. Would I have been in prison? Probably. because I was always fighting, there's territories, there's gangs, all this. I was always seen as the hardest kid in my little clique, if you like. So I was always fighting, and it's one of them where your mum would take you, if you lost a fight, your mum cried, she'd take you to the kid, you're fighting in front of it. Do you know what I mean? It's that type of environment. So knowing as well some of the kids I used to hang around with who were, I would say, academically bright and were supposed to be on this track, they went to prison for drug dealing, and I was worse than them. That kind of code switching earlier, the situations I've been in have shaped me. And I guess if you look right back to where I am today, it has been a positive. I guess the biggest difference is that code switch between A-level going to being a fireman to then A-level choosing to go to university, and the code switch to behavioral, the choice made there has probably been the best thing that's ever happened to me. And going through that real difficult period of coming out of a white town into a multicultural city on your own with hardly any cash, a little bit of stability, being able to read not only body language, but threats as well, because because I've been in that kind of world. You can sense when somebody's being more threatening than they are friendly.
Yeah.
And then, because some conversations you'd have, even when I was living with the other family, you said certain things, it comes with fist or something. So you're able to articulate what you say or mean in a very different way to who you're speaking it to, and that takes time. And then once you get those different communities, then you start to also understand. So things that have led me to where I am today, like, speaking to Asian people, language to use with Asian people, understanding the difference between Muslims and Christians, for example, things you never really know, but you tend to know because you've had to code switch into their world to know them and understand them a little bit more, So
Yeah.
yes, it has massively helped. And being Black, I know yourself and anybody listening to this, there's an element where you always have to be true to yourself 1000%, but the world is not ready for you. The world is not ready for us. The world is still not ready for Black. Let's be honest. Still not ready. So when you're in a corporate environment, especially if there's 1-10 ratio, Black to white, you have to be able to code switch to a certain point whilst also trying to remain authentic to yourself and not devaluing yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And I love that you've said that, because I'm very conflicted on code switching. I code switch like hell, and I don't think about it. I just do it. I grew up, one of 2 African families in a very white middle class school. I've code switched my whole life, basically, and I do it without thinking. And it annoys me that I do, because I just want to be the way I am when I talk with my sister, for example. It's just me, but I can't help it. But I definitely think, even if your code switching is just the language that you use and your accent is your authentic accent, you do have to code switch to a certain extent. It's really important to be authentic, but your authenticity can be the words that you use, the things that you say. It doesn't have to be everything about you. It can just be something that's just kind of adapting. And I think that's something that we do naturally as people anyway. A lot of the time we mirror who we're talking to. So yeah, there's always a balancing act in there, but I would never tell anyone you should lose who you are and just be someone else.
No.
That's a slow death. Don't do that.
On that point though, that there is an element where I see today where I do have to coach certain behaviors out of people, especially the millennial to Gen Z
Yeah.
audience. So we're talking about code switching, certain Black communities will speak in a certain way, have certain ideologies, have certain philosophies, mantras, people around them. And even literally what month we're in, June, last month, I'm in a group chat with the boys, the Mandan, Jamaicans, Caribbeans, like Africans, all in this group. Very different backgrounds. You've got some corporate people in there, you've got some non-corporate people, you've got very different socioeconomic backgrounds. And a situation occurred, and the response from some of them was completely opposite responses to what I would do in a professional corporate environment. And even some of the language being used and the understanding from all sides is very, very different. And one of the individuals who I do coach from that group, I had to really go in and say, like, I understand the perspective that's coming from here. However, that perspective will not work in this corporate environment. And you need to understand that you'll have to change the way you frame that thought, voice that concern. Otherwise, it's going to be shut down. And that is not a Black versus a white thing. That is a professionalism thing. And sometimes it, again, to your point, it's not changing who you are, but it's It's changing sometimes your mindset as to street to the office environment, and that's the
100%.
switch. It's not about changing your flavor, right? It's not about changing who you are. Like, I go into work and I bounce around with all of my blackness, right? But then when I'm on a call, I will use the language, I'll articulate myself a little bit better than if I come off the call in a second, go, yeah, man, what one? Good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, again, I will
100%.
still use that language around people in the office. It's just then in certain environments where you have to change that tonality to fit the mantra. And that's not, again, trying to be white. That's just trying to be articulate.
Absolutely. Because white people will do that. I think white middle class people, that's their natural kind of language, I suppose. But working class white people, for example, will use corporate language when they're in a corporate environment because that's what you do. That's that's what is required in that environment, for example. And I love that you've actually mentioned what you do when you coach, because we've discussed this before. What you mentioned just now is something we've discussed, and it is quite nuanced and we don't always see it, but it is quite a powerful thing, the difference between understanding how to be your authentic self and how to actually navigate the corporate world. And I think a really key part of that is the fact that most of us were not given any exposure to what that world looks like, to what that world expects or requires of you, to what success looks like in that world versus what we think of. We were taught, most of us, to work hard, work twice as hard for half as much. It's got us half as far. It's got us nowhere where we thought we did. And a lot of the time it's not because we're not doing the work and not because we're not highly capable, but because we're giving the wrong signals that those kind of decision makers are looking for. We know that's not all it is, let's not pretend, but there are, I think, things that we can do to progress. And I just wanted to ask a little bit about the coaching. We both do career coaching, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the career coaching that you do. What does that look like and how needed is that?
Yeah, I'm glad you come into it. So it's multifaceted, let's say. That's an articulate word. Normally I mess those words up, but yeah, so it's quite custom as well, right? So it all depends on the individual's needs. So I have some people that literally just want me to have a look at their CV, for example, just from the professional world that I live in within the talent acquisition space, because I'm a talent acquisition professional, been in that space for over 10 years.
Very successful as well.
Yes, thank you very much. But then also from a D&I perspective as well, I have that kind of culture transformation DEI lens where I can look at a CV and understand, okay, well, what things on that CV could potentially rule you out of an opportunity that has that D&I frame. So not just thinking what needs to be on that CV from a skills perspective, which is a given, but what also is on that CV that could knock you out from postcode bias, name bias, hobby bias, all these types of things that some people don't naturally think of. They'll just throw it out there and crack on, especially in this day and age when you now have AI tools building these wonderful CVs that have pictures and images and all these links and stuff, like fantastic visually, but it can knock you the hell out of a process so fast, right? So it's just, again, some people I have just wanting to have a look at the CV. Some people want a cover letter. The cover letter is a dying art form, but it's still one of the biggest things that can amplify your CV, in terms of an application. So I have those types of conversations. Then I have personal brand types of conversations. I'm not going to say I'm a personal brand expert because I'm not, but personal brand goes in so many different directions. The way I focus on it more is your personal professional brand. So what you look like on LinkedIn, as an example. What things should be on LinkedIn? How do you manipulate LinkedIn to work for you versus you working for LinkedIn?
Yeah.
So how did jobs show up for you? How did people inbox you about opportunities, whether it's professional, podcasting, wherever it may be, so that you can build that network up so that when you are looking for an opportunity, or if you just want to stumble across something new, guide people on what that should look like as well. You've got interview tips and tricks, like sort of in-person, virtual, over the phone kind of guidance. Another good one is what I find quite a lot within the Black community is when you get given a task or a case study to prepare for an interview, the difference between a white middle-class person, that case study, versus often what I see a Black individual from our community tackling the same case study is miles apart. And I think it comes from what you were saying before, that some of us don't have that intro, from in terms of professional environment, have that kind of, oh, you should think this or think this. It's really interesting to see because I knew I was guilty of that in the past.
Same.
But
Same.
One thing that we don't do a lot is, and credit to you massively for doing this, but I think what the Black community, in my opinion, doesn't often do a lot is upskill and lift each other. I think we support each other a lot in our communities. I think the communities are great. I think you always see a Black community striving, like surviving and making sure everyone feels safe, and we'll support each other with that. What we don't do is we often don't lift each other while we're climbing.
Great.
So we won't necessarily educate on maybe this should be taken differently. Maybe I should open myself up as a mentor. We don't necessarily do a lot of that things that we try to be getting up the ladder ourselves. We want to be the first one there. We want to be, top.
It's
And
been this one of one culture, hasn't it? And people, I think, historically have felt like if there's space for one, then that one's going to be you, and you don't want someone who's talented to take that one spot. I mean, one thing I would say is over the past few years, I definitely saw that change. I saw a lot of amazing colleagues really uplifting and upskilling and bringing other colleagues through. So I think that is changing, but I do agree we need so much more of that.
exactly. And this is what my coaching provides, right? The other beauty thing I think about the coaching I do as well is it can be for job seekers who are looking to change career or need a career, whatever level of the spectrum they're within, from you'll see it right up to entry level. But also a lot of the time, the biggest requests I get are from people that are currently in roles, trying to understand how they navigate, especially Black people, how they navigate the corporate world from I'm grafting. How do I ask for a pay rise? They've offered me this. Like, do I just accept it? Should I be happy? And some people are just happy. I'm just like, no. Like, there's an opportunity here. We can negotiate. They're never going to put it away from you. You can negotiate. Like, know your worth, and let's see if we can get more, because that's what everybody else is doing. I know it doesn't feel natural to us, but let's go and do it, right? We're not thankful they give us the money. You've worked hard for this, so let's get our work. And it also things around like navigating those workplace conversations, those etiquettes, those, another one like, events at work. How do we show up at corporate events at work, being our Black selves in an audience of white, or different? How do we still remain true to ourselves, but not damage our professional credibility, And sometimes those little things are so unique that not everybody is aware of those things. And some of those things can damage your personal professional brand. The mindset switching as well of, I think I deserve this, but are you performing at that? There's a lot of that coaching and guidance I give to people, and spend a lot of time sort of helping them, shaping their realities. And on top of that as well, making sure, again, if you look at the LinkedIn element, making sure that they are visible, that they are getting the flowers that they deserve, that when recruiters in the world all over LinkedIn are searching for key search terms within their area of expertise, they're showing up on the list, and they're showing up appropriately.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few things you've mentioned there that I just wanted to pick up on really quickly, because one of them is the fact that you really seem to have hacked LinkedIn, because I look at your LinkedIn profile and it's, you've got loads of followers, you're doing brilliantly, really strong profile on there. And it's really, I speak to so many people, Marcel, who are like, oh, I know I need to sort my LinkedIn out. I know I need to do my LinkedIn. And it's like, oh my God, you don't understand. You really need to do your LinkedIn. But again, as you said, there's LinkedIn, there's doing your LinkedIn and making it look good. And then there is putting yourself in a position where recruiters will come to you. And it's getting harder. It's getting so much harder in the market, where it's getting more and more competitive. So there is more need for this. And I think, you've hacked it. I've said to you before, I'm going to come to you for a LinkedIn session, because I think mine's pretty good, but I do really like yours. So I'd love to know a little bit more about that. But the other thing that I really wanted to pick up on also was that whole salary negotiation thing is like, you've got very few opportunities to really get good salary increase, which can be absolutely life-changing. When you get a nice 10K bump in your salary, if you're in that space, it makes all the difference to your life. And it's really important, I think, for people to understand the things that you can do, and to remove that fear of going for that. And I've been massively, all of this imposter syndrome and everything, I've been massively guilty of that in the past. And I love that you are offering that service, because I think it's not that widely available, and people are maybe not aware enough about So yeah, just what kind of wanted to reflect on that. But
The-
yeah, give me a LinkedIn secret, like how do you do it?
Um,
Just a little one.
how do you do LinkedIn? So commitment without, it's conflicting. Commitment without overcommitment, right? So what I mean by that is there's certain things you can do on LinkedIn to start. You have to get the foundation right. So build your foundation. You're a perfect example. Your LinkedIn is good and you want it to be better. So your LinkedIn is good as a baseline. The commitment is by doing a couple of things I can teach within, my course and workshop that'll allow you to become visible and get networks. So, people come to you and you will go to them. And then there's other things in terms of when you post that makes you a professional, gives you flowers, gives you credibility. So the people that you are networking in can not only just see you're on this platform, but now you're talking in their language as well. It's some very simple things. It's simple. And a lot of the stuff you don't even have to think of because it's already there. You're just putting it on the space under your profile and talking about it. So the way I say is commitment, not over commitment. It's because it should be at the start, yes, get your baseline, but then daily, every other day, 10, 15, 20 minutes max. I've started off with every morning having a 10-minute blocker in my calendar from 9 a.m. to 3 bullet points in, do this, do this, do this. Done. That was it.
Okay.
And then it became such a routine that it happened. And then you don't even need that because once you get the commitment bit right and you've done your little basics, your LinkedIn pops for you and your inbox is just crazy. My inbox is full. Wow. It's absolutely insane, but it's all good stuff with no connections or bad connections on LinkedIn. And that's another thing is give you a little bit of insider. Don't worry about who you're connecting with necessarily. You don't have to be picky and choosy because you don't know who their first, second or third connections are. It could be so valuable to you. I remember one of the advice I was giving in recruitment was, be very careful of who you're networking with because you don't want
I've
them on
been
your
told
LinkedIn.
that as well.
Like, what do you mean? Like, why would I want that? Because that individual might work for Universum. 6 years down the line, 2 years, 6 months down the line, they're now at Total Jobs and I need something from Total Jobs. Oh, hello. There you are. It's that's ridiculous advice.
Yeah, no, and it just makes sense. And look at that. I was told be picky. I'm not picky, I think, with my LinkedIn, but that did stick with me. And you've said that now, and it's like, God, that's just logic, isn't it? That just makes sense that you don't restrict your opportunities because you're too precious to connect with certain people on LinkedIn. It's a networking site.
And I love when you mentioned the salary bit as well. Like salary conversation is such, I see it every day, the fear in people when that comes around. And I'm just looking, I'm like, why are you nervous about it? Like, they've come to you with money. You can now ask more. Like, they're telling you that you're good and you're valuable. They're coming to you with money. Like, just say, can I have an extra 3K more? No. Okay, fine. I'll take this extra money anyway. Don't be afraid of it. You should never be afraid of asking for that extra bit of cash. You are valuable. It goes hand in hand with that thing of, if you're moving on to another company, and this is the age-old one, right? When your company comes back and they do the old counter offer, why don't you do that before?
Oh my
You'll
God.
give me 10 more. If you value me now. Like, I
100%.
shouldn't have my head turned, for anything. This space, and this is what I say about like when I speak to companies or when I speak to leaders and I do coaching of leaders of organizations. There's one recently, a big trust, and I coached them. And one of their dilemmas was retention. How do we retain real top talent from going off to these places? Because they pay more, but we've got all this fantastic stuff. And I was like, great. And then you look at your culture transformation, we're looking at that, we're exploring these bits. And you keep calling yourself a family, cut that out, that's nonsense, right? Change that whole ideology to a community and watch how you grow. Because if you can make your workplace and your employees and your staff feel like they have joined a community with options, and it's safe and they can grow, then they will stay in that community and they'll ask people to come in. It's just like when you're at home, you live in a certain area, when you've got a certain level of wealth, if you have that freedom, you move to a certain community for the benefit of you. It's safe. It's good for the kid. It's good for the environment, wherever it may be. You then choose whether you want to go in or out. Same with the workplace.
Yeah.
We should get that community right. It's right. But one thing you can't do with community, they call it a family, because people go in and out. And things in that community, government can change the community, out of your control. Business, you lose revenue, you have to lose people in the community. You can't come with family because you're never going to lose your family members if
Exactly.
my brother back and my £10 back. Do you know what I mean?
100%. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, because there's
Important.
this kind of trust issue and authenticity issue, isn't it? And the moment a company starts referring to staff who go there because you pay them to be their family, but then, as you said, you know, it's a business, it's not. So community, 100%. I couldn't agree more. I really couldn't. And you've just mentioned just now some of the consulting. So you do lots of consulting to businesses, you do lots of strategic consulting. We did sort of start to talk about your journey earlier, but you've got this really powerful and growing consultancy business, both to individuals and to businesses. How did you get there? How did you learn all of this stuff?
Great question. I'd like to say it was natural, but obviously it wasn't, right? So it was coming to your head. I guess it started with my journey from university into the corporate world. You know, I think you learn a lot of things along the journey. You know, you go from working in a retail store, learning that space. You then go into recruitment agencies, you learn that space. Then you go into sort of talent acquisition for global brands, and you sort of learn that world, you know, which is ever growing and ever evolving. You get along the journey, you get a lot of knowledge. Along that journey as well, we talked about networking when I came to university. Networking is probably the one thing I try to do the most out of everything in my entire career, and anything I try and do. If I add up the amount of time I spend networking, I actually won't do that because I'm a partner. Find out how much time I spend networking. She's a kid. But there's a lot of things that people say like network is your net worth, and it's so true because I wouldn't be in the job that I'm in now if it wasn't for my network. I wouldn't get the consultancy jobs that I get now if it wasn't for my network of people knowing people, you know, and that's what builds it all up. So I guess when I attend these industry events, I'm sat around peers, I'm sat around leaders, you're taking knowledge, you're sponging it all in. And for anybody listening to this, like, take that time, like working the 9 to 5 or work the 9 to 9s, whatever it is, having a half an hour to spend in a networking lunch. The things you'll learn in that networking lunch can set you up, frame your mind completely differently. It absolutely has. I've gone from that kind of closed mindset to growth mindset in just a few years. That changes the whole mindset as well. So networking with like-minded, similar and different individuals just broadens your horizons. There's things that I even thought of that I was adamant were, this is the way I do it. This is the right way of doing it. You speak to some people, and although you start to disagree, like, now that can't work. When they start to show you the results of that, then you have a proper conversation. You build that knowledge for yourself. You do a little bit more research, and then you try it, and then you now become that expert within that space as well. Yeah. So I guess my journey started with that. Really, it was having that blueprint and foundation in the professional environment, taking myself out of that professional environment and not just sitting within, I guess, the construct of a four-wall environment, and looking like, well, how do I continue to grow myself above my station, if you like, to stretch and grow for the benefit of the industry? And that's probably what's ingrained within me, is helping people. And if I can help one person and add value to one person's life, that's amazing. So when I speak to some of these organizations and these companies and I consult on their ways of working, like, the most humbling and I guess the blessing for me is not just being paid, but when I see the things in their mind shift, where I challenge them, or I just light the light bulb that was already in their head, but they weren't thinking about, you know, it's fantastic for me. And that's what gives me energy to continue doing what I can do. Because let's be honest, I could close up shop, settle in just to my 4 construct walls of my profession and just sit in my world and be comfortable and happy as Larry. But I know I want more. I want to do more. I want to help and give back, which is why I do these extra things, you know? Yeah. And is another individual, a couple of individuals in my life. And I guess if I can be this individual for one of your audience, great. So I had this for me late in my career. They were like, why are you doing this for free? Which meant, okay, monetize it. Secondly, why don't more people know what you know? And I was like, I have no idea. Share it. And I was like, okay, I will, you know? So again, it's not locking the information within yourself if you're comfortable enough, getting it out there. And that's what I tried. Now, my LinkedIn, yes, you said it's great. My Instagram is shocking. So if you have any audience members, that's great. On my Instagram, please coach me on Instagram because I'm terrible at it, and that'll get me even bigger. But yeah, that's where it came.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Sense.
absolutely. I think you have absolutely nailed it when you talked about the growth mindset. I can say I've been on maybe not the same journey, but a similar journey to you in terms of being in your safe space in terms of work and your professional life. And for me, it was always a case of I don't have the bandwidth. I'm not taking on additional responsibility. I'm not doing this extra stuff. I just don't have the time or the capacity for it. But it's an investment. When you invest in that networking event, when you invest in whatever webinar or whatever it is you're going to go to, what you get out of the other end, my career trajectory, there you go, I can't say it, trajectory, when it was kind of, it was always on the up, but it was quite a safe up by, just absorbing new things, learning new things, understanding, kind of getting the hacks a little bit. It just took me in a completely different direction, which was, I don't think I would have been able to do otherwise, but I'm just so eternally grateful for. So how much of that would you cover with your coaching when it comes to expanding your horizons and things like that? Is that something that you do, or do you need people to have that ready? They need to be ready with that when they come to you.
It used a mixture of both. I think one thing I do with my coaching is the first session of my coaching is a 30-minute, 40-minute conversation. It's just an open-ended conversation. It's just understanding the mindset of the individual I'm speaking to. Because some people will come to me and they have this sort of vision of where they want to be. We haven't. It's like I'm not a psychologist, by the way, but it's like 20, 30 minutes of that conversation. We flip that vision on its head completely. Because we realize that's not the action motivator. That's somebody else's motivator of their vision for you versus what your vision for yourself is. And the best example of that is when you've got people who want to be successful, but don't understand what success is, so they want to be successful and have a lovely life, but they forget that they're always then, the way they're currently working is by chasing that carrot all the time. They're being successful in the corporate world, getting frustrated, stressed, but they get that carrot. Then they try to get the next carrot. Then they try to get the next carrot. They're forgetting life. They're forgetting what things they're working so hard to achieve. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, because again, you work hard, you can get success. But there's things as well where, some people work really hard and it doesn't equal success. And that's not a bad thing either, right? It doesn't equal success in terms of millionaire status. For me, when I'm having these conversations with individuals, it's what is making you happy? What makes you happy? What do you want? And they kind of and ahh, and I always share my example. I say, well, when I was stepping into sort of work after university, I said, if I can hit 30K, done. Everything after that is comfy, because I know back then I've got a nice house, I've got a car, I've got on holiday, I've got a nice career. And anything above that, I'm happy with. I never have ambitions to become a millionaire. If that happens, fantastic. That's not on my mind map. That's not on my growth plan. I don't hunt that. That kind of success doesn't make me happy, right? What I do right now makes me happy. And if that comes with millionaires, I'm not worried. It won't keep me up at night, right? So when I hit that 30K, that was for me. And that's what my goals was. And then I also looked at, in my day-to-day, what do I want? What do I want to be waking up to? Do I want to be going to bed after watching Corrie Omnibus on a 7 o'clock on a Sunday? Sugar, I've got to wake up at 6 for work tomorrow. I don't really want to go in. Do I want to be doing that for the next 50, 60 years? No, I don't. So what's going to fill my cup up? Not just halfway, what's going to fill it 3/4 the way, still gives me a little to go in and get, but is enough that I can go, yeah, I'm comfy, I've got a nice car, nice holiday. So when you unlock that in somebody, you then realize that what they're chasing often isn't what they actually want to achieve. And that then creates this whole journey onto, is it the mind mapping thing? Is it mapping out your current organization? Is it actually your life? Is it your etiquette? Is it net? What part of my coaching then can benefit you to where you need to be?
Absolutely. It's so important to start from that basic question and understanding of what you actually want. You've reminded me of when I had my life coaching session with my life coach, and, we were kind of going through what it was I was looking for. And I thought I knew what I wanted because, with me starting the Black Network, it was really clear to me what I wanted to do. Same as you, I wanted to give back. I wanted to build something that is sustainable and can sustain me. But if I can reach 10 people, if I can help however many people it is, there's a fulfillment in that. And it makes me very happy to share that knowledge. But I had these really sort of big growth plans. I want, this is our population in the UK. I want everyone to know this and share this. And I went through this session with him and I realized at the end, I had my aha moment, which was actually my first priority is not chasing growth numbers and evangelizing to the whole world. It's actually having work-life balance and making sure that I have quality time with my kids. That was my number one priority. And it didn't stop what I'm doing with the Black Network, but it made me understand it's number two, it's not number one, And so now everything I do builds in that work-life balance first, and then everything else comes after that. And I know when I do that, I'm always, I'll have my stressed out moments. I have my moments where I'm working crazy hours, but overall that balance will remain. You have to understand your why. You have to know what you're doing it for and what you want to achieve. And then everything's gravy, quite, but close enough, right?
100% agree with that. It's also remembering that you can make mistakes. You can mess up. I mess up, right? You mess up. We're human beings. This is what's really good when I have mentors and I mentee people. It shouldn't be just a relationship with a coach or a mentor that lasts 2 sessions, 3 sessions, 4 sessions. When you get to where you achieve, that doesn't mean it's ended. It means, yes, you might cut the duration down or the frequency, but it shouldn't end, because the reason why you got that person is for a reason. And if you stop having that person, you start to slip. You can very quick slip back into old. I've done it. Everybody's done it, right? And you have to continue that momentum through to get that to keep pushing you through. Because, even myself, there's big times when I prioritize work or family too much, or I do the other way. And I'm like, actually, I forgot that meeting the other day. Not. So it's always having a balance. And as long as you can stay,
and having someone to kind of reflect back at you, to ask you to, make sure that you ask yourself the right questions. That's what it is as well for me. So,
and that's one thing I'll always be with anybody that comes into my space. There's things I'll tell them, which is, I'm always going to be open and honest with you. You ask me a question, I'll answer it in the way I see it, always the way that's appropriate, and then I'll always hold you accountable. I'm not here to blow bubbles around you and put you in cotton wool and wrap you in flowers. If I feel that if there's had conversations where people have had meetings with their managers, for example, and come and ask my advice, and they've shared, articulately what's been said, what's the actions, and I've gone completely against my client on that scenario. I'm gone, well, let me just frame this to you here. And it's just a way I articulate to them so they can understand it and then navigate that understanding, pull that wall back down. How do we get you back up? And it is something I'll always do with people, is if you need to be held accountable, I'll hold you accountable, because that's going to be the best way for you to grow. If you're not held accountable, like, one of the things for me is, I don't know if you know this actually, but I'm not religious, right? I'm not religious at all. And there's only one thing I would say, apart from just general, partners and kids and stuff, probably one thing in life that holds me accountable and makes me do something and tells me I can't do something. And that's Ramadan. And I'm Muslim.
Yes, actually, I do remember you saying that before. Yeah.
I'm not Muslim. I am not religious in any way. I've got a lot of Muslim friends, and they tried to get me to do it for a number of years. And I took part maybe 6-7 years ago, and I've continued it ever since. And I know people do it for different reasons, religious reasons, etc. The reason why I do it is it's a month of giving back. It's sacrifice, it's growth, it's renewal, it's rejuvenation, it's self-exploration, and it's the discipline. Like, I know it's nobody real, but it's something telling me in my head, or something around whatever it is in my world, that tells me I can't do anything, because I don't have that. I don't have that family unit of, here's the parameters, Marcell, this is what you should and shouldn't do. I've never been given them. So I don't have that accountability. I have nobody really telling me what I can and can't do. I've built a career, I've built a job, I've built everything else that I can get whatever I near enough want and do whatever I really want to do. This one thing every year for a month restricts me, and I have to hold myself accountable. Again, I then instill that to other people, is that if you don't have that person that's willing to tell you, hey, you're wrong here, let me tell you why, because of this, that's fine. It's good to disagree, let's talk it through. If you don't have that person, you'll never be able to self-evaluate and you'll never be able to grow. And I learned that at a young age. I then took on Ramadan. I then did the growth mindset elements, the 360 feedbacks. So important for growth.
My family's Muslim. I've never fasted or done Ramadan in my life.
I think we said that. We agreed that one year we were going to do it together.
We
I
did.
can't remember.
We did.
Yeah.
So maybe this year
Probably.
coming, we will. So
Yeah.
listen, I know we're coming up at time. You and I could just talk forever, but we're going to have a big focus on careers. It's I'm speaking to so many people at the moment who need their CV reviewed, who want coaching through their job journey. It is a difficult market. What are if you have, say, your top 3 pieces of advice for a job seeker at the moment in the current market?
Be available. And when I say be available, I don't mean sit on your ass and say I'm available. What I mean by be available is put yourself out there, be available. Whether that's going to the job center, it's getting on LinkedIn, it's networking. LinkedIn is such a powerful tool for you to make yourself exposed to people. You can have so much exposure. You can networking with all these companies, find all these recruiters, drop them a message. Job seeker, you're looking for a role. Here it is. That's if you're unemployed or employed. That's my number 1 is be available. Second one is review yourself. So what is it about me that is making you look for a job? Is it circumstance? Is it redundancy? Is it I've been fired? Is it that I just want to change? What is it? And then frame that into your personal brand, whether that's your CV, your Instagrams, your LinkedIn's, whatever it may be. Change what it is, mix it up, make sure on your CV you've articulated everything you need to review yourself and reflect in terms of that person you want to become next, career you want to become next. So review yourself, understand what it is you are, who you are, and where you want to go. The third one is have that motivation and ability to say no. What I mean by that, if you're unemployed, you don't have to take the first job that comes your way. Have options. If you've done the first 2, you're going to get options. Trust me. If you book onto any of the courses that are going to be on your platform and you listen to some of the speakers that are going to be on this platform, do some of the courses, the workshops, whatever it may be, you're networking in, you're going to then start building. I guarantee you within this community, you will get options. You don't have to take the first one. Know your worth. You'll learn from people. You'll get coaches on this platform who will be able to teach you pause and hold techniques when you get job offers, how to articulate yourself in those job offer moments when they call you up and you're so surprised. You're like, could you just give me 3 days? It's that articulation, hold, review, talk it through your coach, your family, know your worth, and just kind of settle a bit. Don't always have to say yes, know when to say no. So they're my 3 biggest tips for job seekers, I'd say right now.
Yeah, love it. And I'm going to ask you quick fire questions. Complete the sentence for me. Best advice I ever had was?
Best advice I ever had was to be myself and be unapologetic with it. Like, I'm here for a reason. Own it.
Brilliant. And the best thing I ever did was?
The best thing I ever did, I'm not going to talk about professional things because they are what I consider as a given. The best thing I ever did for myself was step into my skin and choose the path that supported me, my family, and is supporting people around me to be the best versions of themselves, to own who I am.
Love. My biggest professional regret is?
Similar to the first one, is trying to fit into a corporate mold as to what I'm not. Listening to other people telling me what I should be versus what I can be, and not realizing that I'm exactly who I'm supposed to be and why I'm here. That's my biggest regret. I spent too many years doing that.
Oh my God, I love it. And finally, a sentence of your own, Marcell.
It's my own.
What's the number 1 thought that you'll leave us with?
First community, and from me to you, sentence I want to leave you with is, being Black, we should never be apologetic for who we are. We should never feel grateful for where we've come or what we've achieved. We've worked very hard. You hear the statements around, you have to work twice as hard sometimes to get your flowers. We've worked hard for who we are. We should be unapologetic. We should be grateful for who we are and not be grateful for what we receive in the professional workplace, because we've worked hard to do it, and your counterparts won't be saying, be grateful on the other side. Trust me. So my sentence is, being Black is powerful. Being Black is being unapologetic. Being Black is being part of a community. And being Black is achieving things that you never thought you could.
Love, love, love. Thank you so much. And that is a perfect segue into me signing off, saying a huge thank you to you, Marcell Edwards. Amazing. So you may have guessed, to the audience, Marcell and I are going to be working together going forward. We're going to have some great stuff coming your way when it comes to career progression and supporting people through their career choices. So do look out for that. The Black Network will be launching soon, and I'm going to drop some information in the description. Check that out. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you in the next video.